Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I wanted to show you some more metallic gilding polishes. And I've done two previous videos on these, kind of a part 1 and part 2. So I'll link those down below and also on my blog if you want to check those out, where we make several different projects. And today I'm going to do the same thing. We'll make a whole bunch of backgrounds, and then at the end I'll show you how I put them together to create some cards. So let's go ahead and get started. These are 4 of the newer colors that are available. I did purchase these a few months back, and I just haven't had a chance to show you these yet. So today we're going to focus on just these 4 new colors that I purchased. And this one is called Coral Sands. And then we have this next one here, and this one is called Blue Wave. And again, these are the gilding polishes. Now, in some previous videos, I showed you the opal polishes, which are a little bit more translucent. This one is called Pink Sunset, but the opal polishes are more opaque, and I'll show you what I mean by that here in a second. And this last one is called Sandcastle. So as I mentioned before in a previous video, the best way to take the lids off of these is to unscrew the cap, place it on your table, and then just push that little tab to the side, and those little foam applicators will pop right out. So each of these includes a foam applicator, which makes it really easy to use and to store these. So I've got 2 pieces of cardstock here, one in the white Strathmore Bristol Smooth and one in black 100-pound cardstock. I've got my little art journal, which I've shown you in the past, and these are the new colors that we'll be using today. So we've got the Blue Wave, the Pink Sunset, the Coral Sands, and the Sandcastle. So you can see for the gilding polish, the color is pretty much the same, just a little bit more muted when you go from the white cardstock to the black cardstock. And you can see that on all of these here. But when I go to the opal polish, you can see how it changes color. So it has kind of an interference color in it. So when you go from the white cardstock to the black, it actually is a different color. So let's do a whole bunch of examples here so you can see what these look like on the different colors of cardstock here. So I've got my Stampers Anonymous Bouquet layering stencil, and this is from the Tim Holtz collection. And let's start off with the Sandcastle. Now I'm going to take that foam applicator, and you want to just grab some of that ink and then just kind of scrape that applicator right along the edge of your jar. Now, if you feel like you still have some maybe little clumps there or something, that's when I'll pat it onto my craft mat just to take away any excess. Sometimes it's a little harder to get a nice smooth amount onto your applicator. So what I'll do is just pat it on my craft mat and then go to my stencil or to my cardstock. So I'm going to use all 4 colors on this. And again, these colors, these inks, they do not blend together. So I'm really just laying down one color at a time. They dry very quickly, so you're really not blending. I'm just kind of overlaying one color on top of the other. You can come back in with more layers of color and kind of smooth things out, but you're really not blending the ink. They just don't blend in that way. So I've got again, I'm going back to my colors, just kind of filling in and then overlaying color over some of those areas just to make it look like these are blended together. And then you can get a closer look at how beautiful this is. And they have that beautiful shimmery metallic-y look to them. So let's set that aside and do the same exact thing on some black cardstock. Now I did want to show you that it's really easy to clean these. They're water-based, so I can easily spray some water on there and clean this off. So it's no problem cleaning everything off. It's really easy to do. So once I wipe that down nice and dry, I'm going to place that onto some black cardstock now. And I'm going to use the exact same colors we used before, and you'll see how completely different this really looks. So the black cardstock is going to give us a little bit more of a muted effect to these colors and bring out some different tones in these colors. And so I'm going to apply these colors the same way I did before. Just kind of adding some colors here and there, and then coming back in with more of those same colors, and then just kind of just overlaying on top of each other until I get that look that I want. And so now I have all 4 colors down. And let's remove that stencil and look at how beautiful this is. And let's compare that to the one on the white cardstock, and you can see they're very different looking. Even though it's the exact same ink, it's just got a different kind of a hue to it. The colors have a different hue to them. So now let's go ahead. I was noticing I had a lot of ink on here. I wanted to see what would happen if I just spritzed it a little bit and then laid it down onto a piece of white cardstock. I just wanted to see what I would get here. So just play around with these when you're working with these. I didn't want to waste that ink, so I thought, well, let's see what we get. So I'm just pressing that down with some clean scrap paper there. And look at this background. It's very interesting. It's just kind of a muted design. That would make a great background with just a sentiment stamped over the top of it. So now let's go ahead and go back to the Sandcastle color. And again, now here's where I want to show you, and I know I showed you this in a previous video, but this is where I'm doing a direct to paper technique. So I'm just applying the ink directly to the paper, but you'll see here that it's not blending. It's just laying down the color. So I'm just moving it around as best I can, but it dries very quickly. So I can come back over these colors and make it appear as though I've blended them a bit, but they're really not blending together. But that's okay. We're going to create a really fun background with this effect. So it's fine with me that they're not blending. I really kind of like this look. It's keeping the colors very separated. And you do get a little overlap color there as well. So you get an interesting look here. Now let's do the same exact thing on the black cardstock. And I just die cut these little frames out from the Holtz stacked Deckle dies. Those are from Sizzix. And I'll give you a closer look at those here in a second. So again, just blending these colors onto the cardstock and then adding more color if I want to, and getting some overlapping here, but again, not blending really, just some overlap here. And I really love how this looks on the black cardstock. It's just so beautiful. So let's set those aside. And here I'll show you up close that Sizzix Thinlits stacked Deckle die set from Holtz. So we're going to grab that largest one there. And then we're also going to grab the Sizzix 3D Textured Impressions Floral Mandala. This is a beautiful 3D embossing folder from Sizzix. Now I've run those through with the black cardstock and the same white cardstock, and I'll just tape this down with a little bit of temporary tape here just to hold it in place while I do some inking. And now I'm going to start with those same colors again. So here's where I do want to make sure I pat off some excess. I just don't want too much. I'm using a very light hand here. I'm trying to keep that ink up on top of that embossed area. I'm trying not to push it down into the cardstock here. So again, I'm using a very light touch here. As opposed to when I did the backgrounds, I'm just pressing it down into that cardstock. Here, I'm just keeping it up on top. Just kind of trying to keep that applicator as flat as I can. I don't want to get a lot of ink down into the grooves there. So now I'll just come back with some of those other colors and continue filling that in. And back to that bright pink for a little bit more color on top here. I just want to highlight that center a little bit better. So now I want to spatter. I'm going to place a little bit of the ink onto my medium mat here, and I'm spritzing it with a little bit of water, and I can go ahead and spatter this panel. This will just kind of bring everything together here. So let's go ahead and do that same thing on the black cardstock. Again, using a very light hand, patting any excess onto my mat here, and then going to my cardstock and not pressing down very hard. And again, you can already see how different this looks from the white cardstock. And in a previous video, I've used some craft cardstock as well, which is also just a really unique look to it. And I was thinking maybe a gray or a navy blue would be interesting to try. Maybe in the next video I'll give that a try. So again, just adding more colors here and there. Now I'm just laying down some ink so I can do some spattering. So I've got that blue this time, and I'm going to spatter that on the background. You could certainly spatter with multiple colors if you want to. You could use all 4 colors if you wanted to here. It just sort of ties things together a little bit better. So look how different these are. Look how beautiful these are side by side. So now I'm adding another color here. This is the Ocean Teal Gilding Polish. And this one I've had for a little while, but I don't think I ever used it before. So what I want to do is just add a little bit of that teal right to the tops. And I'm not adding a lot, just a little tiny bit. Again, patting it off on my mat there and then coming to the cardstock. I just thought that added a little bit more richness to that background. And for this one, I'm going to add the Glitter Kiss. It's kind of just a clear sparkle, and it's got a little bit of a gritty texture to it. So you definitely want to pat this down on your mat and smooth it out a little bit before you go to your cardstock. Now I think mine was a little bit dry, so I probably could have given it a little spritz of water before I started, but it was easy enough just to pat it onto my mat and then bring it onto the cardstock. And again, this will have like a gritty texture to it, and it will get down into the grooves there a little bit and give us that pretty sparkle. Now you want to make sure you clean off the tops of your jars, especially this one here, because it gets really sticky. So I'm going to make sure I use a damp baby wipe, wipe that down, spritz it with a little bit of water, put the lid back on, and then I like to clean off my foam applicators before I put them away. I just rinse them under the sink, and then I'll pop them back into place. So do take the time to clean those off, otherwise it might be difficult to open up these jars. And you could use some press and seal here just to protect everything if you want to. So let's take a look at these backgrounds real quickly, and then I want to show you some cards that I made, and we'll go through these one at a time here. Just to give you some ideas of some things you can do with all these backgrounds after you're done. Sometimes I'll think, what am I supposed to do with all these when I'm done? So I wanted to show you some ideas here. So I'm using the Stampers Anonymous Tim Holtz Wildflower stencil, and I'm going to just position that down with these magnets. And then I want to do some embossing, so I'm going to use my Embossed dabber from Ranger. But I did decide here to put down some anti-static powder on here. Not so much because the ink is wet or could be wet, mostly just because of my fingerprints and handling it. I didn't want it to stick anywhere that I didn't want it to be. So with this dabber, what's really nice is I can just go right down into these areas on the stencil, just patting on some of that clear embossing ink. And this is a great way to do it if you want to use more than one embossing powder. You could just dab on the flowers and then emboss them, and then come in and dab on another color for your stems. So that makes it easy to do. So now I'm going to add some Ranger Superfine Detail White embossing powder, and I'll just sprinkle that on. And then we'll just tap off any excess here. Now if you do see anywhere it might have just stuck in a few little areas you didn't want it to, just grab a dry brush and just brush that away. Now I can go ahead and heat set that with my heat tool. So now that that's all set, let's do the same thing for this other one. Again, just centering it on that panel. This time I thought I'd show you, if you don't have that little dauber, you can certainly use your Versamark watermark ink pad. All you want to do is press down in that opening. Just press and go over it a few times, 2 or 3 times, just to make sure that ink went right down in those openings. Now go ahead and do the same thing, just sprinkling on some embossing powder here, and I'm using that white again. You could certainly do black here as well. That would be really interesting. So we've got those two all set. I went ahead and heat set that. Now I'm taking that bright pink and I'm going to go right around the edges of this panel, just to frame that off a little bit here. And I'll do the same thing for this other one. So I want to show you what I did with all of these backgrounds. So for this first one here, I've got a white card base. I mounted that onto some black cardstock. And then I've got the word celebrate and a quote chip there. So let me show you where these came from. And that celebrate is in some metallic, a pretty pink metallic. So what I used here for the word celebrate is the Celebration Words script dies from Tim Holtz. And this is the Sizzix Thinlits collection. So I went ahead and die cut that using the Tim Holtz Ideology craft stock in the metallic colors. And I used that pretty pink right there. Other sentiment that says life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. That came from the Tim Holtz Ideology quote chips. This one is called Theories. And you can see you get lots of choices here. So now let's take a look at that black panel that we created. And here again, I used one of those quote chips, and I used the word celebration words again, and I die cut it out of some of that metallic cardstock from that same paper pack, and that says congrats. And then for the card base on this one, I used the Tim Holtz craft stock in the cool colors. I use that kind of eggplant color there. So that's those two cards, those two backgrounds. And then let's go to these two here. Now for these, what I'm going to do is die cut out some sentiments. And these are fantastic. You get all, let's see, what do you get? 7 of these dies in this Sizzix Thinlits set. And this is called the Bold Text #1 set. And I love these. I can think of a million things I could do with these. These would be great for shaker cards as well. So what I'm going to do is select a couple of those sentiments here and go ahead and die cut these. And you can see it die cuts the word right out. And then you have those little leftover letters that you could use for just about anything else. So you could use You could pop those letters back in if you wanted to, or pop them up, or die cut them in another color and pop them in. So you have a lot of options here. And then this one I die cut as well. And let me put it on some white cardstock here so you can see this one. And that says happy birthday to you. So again, I'm going to keep all those little pieces that I pop out, and I'll keep them with the dies, since I think those backgrounds will make some interesting letter combinations here. So I went ahead and assembled my cards, and you can see that up close. I just love these words. I love that. I think it's so cute, so easy to do. You could make a whole set of note cards like this. And for the sequins, I added a few sequins there, and these are from Picket Fence Studios, and it's called On a Cloudy Day. And then I used some Lawn Fawn cardstock in the guava just to back that. And then for this one, which says happy birthday to you, again, I added a few of those sequins from that same sequin mix. And then for cardstock here, I used the Lawn Fawn Sticky Note cardstock, which is a really pretty yellow. So those are those two cards with those two backgrounds. And then let's go to these Mandala, I hope I'm saying that right, Mandala embossing folders. And I just thought these were so beautiful just all by themselves that I didn't want to add anything. I'm just going to use these as note cards. I'm leaving them blank inside. I can always stamp something in there or just write a note. And I added from that same On a Cloudy Day sequin mix, I just added a little gem to the center of each of those mandalas. So again, I will link the other two metallic gilding polish videos down below and also on my blog if you're interested in checking those out. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.